From the towering Wasatch Mountains in the heart of the American West, welcome to this episode of Undiscovered Utah. This show focuses on the mysteries, forgotten places, rugged landscapes, and sometimes deadly history of the American Southwest. I'm your host, Neal Beckstrand. Though many of you know me as JB, that name, JB, came from my full name, Neal J. Beckstrand. J is my middle name and Beckstrand is my last name, and somewhere along the way, JB became the name I use for this podcast. For years, that's how many of you have known me. But with the release of my new book, Death, Silver, and Sin, which I published under my real name, I decided it was time to step a little more fully into the work. So, from here forward, you'll hear me use both Neal Beckstrand, and to many of you, I'm still JB. If you've been listening to Undiscovered Utah for a while, you've probably noticed something. The last episode was nearly 8 months ago. No, I didn't stop exploring Utah. I didn't lose interest in history. In fact, I became more immersed in Utah history than I ever imagined possible. Over the last 8 months, I disappeared into another project, one that completely changed how I look at this incredible state, its forgotten places, and the people who lived here before us. Today, I'd like to tell you where I've been, what I've learned, and where Undiscovered Utah is headed next. I grew up in Utah. My younger years were spent in Carbon County, and it was a great place for a kid to grow up. I think a lot of people drive through Carbon County on their way to Moab, Lake Powell, or some other destination, but they miss what is right in front of them. If you've never planned a weekend in and around Price, Utah, you should. There are a lot of fun, fascinating, and overlooked places to see, explore, and learn about. After Carbon County, I moved to Utah County and have lived there ever since. As a young man, I hunted, camped, hiked, and explored many parts of Utah. I listened to stories from my grandparents on both sides of the family. They told me about their childhoods, their work, their families, and the places they remembered from early Utah life. Those stories fascinated me. Utah history has always been fascinating to me. Yes, I have a rich heritage tied to Mormon pioneer history, but growing up in Carbon County gave me a unique view of Utah that was much broader than that. Carbon County was more diverse, ethnically, culturally, and religiously, than any other parts of Utah. My parents made it very clear to me that there are good people in all religions, all cultures, and all walks of life. If America is the melting pot of the world, then Carbon County felt like the melting pot of Utah. And that is one of the things I love about Utah history. It's not just one story. It's thousands of stories. Some are pioneer stories, some are mining stories, some are Native American stories, some are outlaw stories, and some are immigrant stories. Some are stories of railroad workers, farmers, ranchers, merchants, freighters, soldiers, mothers, widows, lawmen, miners, and families just trying to survive in a difficult land. All of these stories need to be told in one form or another. They need to be remembered. Whether the story is about a specific person, a nearly forgotten town, an abandoned mine, an old railroad, a weathered cemetery, or a place that most people today just drive past on their way somewhere else, those stories matter. And those stories are the reason you subscribe to this podcast. I thought I had a good amount of knowledge about Utah history. Then I started researching one mining town that had fascinated me for many years. That town was Frisco, Utah. I had visited Frisco before. I had read stories about its history. I knew about the Horn Silver Mine. I knew about the wild reputation of the town. I knew about the boom and the bust nature of mining camps in the Old West. But the more I researched Frisco, the more personal it became. I discovered that I had a family connection to the remote mining town through an ancestor who delivered freight there. That caught my attention. I have always been fascinated by the wild mining towns of Utah, these rough, dangerous, money-driven places scattered here and there in the middle of Mormon country. In many cases, you had two very different worlds operating only a few miles apart. On one side, you had farming communities, church meetings, family life, pioneer settlements, and people trying to build permanent homes in a difficult land. On the other side, you had mining camps, saloon, gamblers, prospectors, freighters, merchants, and men chasing silver, gold, and survival. That contrast has always fascinated me. Back in 2022, we did an episode on the old mining town of Frisco, Utah, and the Horn Silver Mine. Even then, I often imagined what it would have been like to be alive in 1887 and walk the streets of old Frisco. What would the town have sounded like? What would it have smelled like? What kind of people would have you met? What kind of dangers would have been waiting around the corner? Knowing that my great-grandfather delivered freight to Frisco on a regular basis made the place even more interesting to me. He was a staunch member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and for many years I imagined that delivering supplies to Frisco must have felt like walking into the lion's den. That thought stayed with me, and eventually it became the reason I decided to write a fictional novel about life in Frisco. That project is what pulled me away from the podcast. What started as a simple idea became something much larger. I spent months researching Frisco, the Horn Silver Mine, freight routes, mining life, saloons, law enforcement, pioneer communities, and what daily life may have looked like in the Utah Territory in the late 1800s. The book is now finished and published. It is called Death, Silver, and Sin, and is available on Amazon. And now I can finally turn my attention back to Undiscovered Utah. But I am not coming back to the podcast exactly the same as I was before. That project changed the way I look at history. Even though the story I wrote was fictional, many of the details were based on real research, and through that process, I rediscovered the truth that I think many of us already know deep down. The story is not really about the place. The story is about the people. I used to visit a ghost town and focus mostly on the old buildings, the old railroad grades, the old kilns, the old mining equipment, and rusted cans, the broken glass, the shattered bricks, and the weathered wood. I still love all of that. I still love photographing old structures, old roads, old machinery, old cabins, and places that feel like they were slowly being erased by time. But now I think much more about the people who worked these mines, the people who lived in those houses, the people that ran the mercantile, the people who cooked meals, washed clothes, raised children, buried loved ones, and tried to build a life in a place most of us would find almost impossible today. I think about the freighters who hauled supplies year-round to remote towns like Frisco. I think about the women who arrived in rough mining towns and had to find a way to survive. I think about the men who went underground every day, knowing the mine could make them rich or kill them. I think about the lawmen, the merchants, the gamblers, the immigrants, the widows, the children, and the families whose names rarely show up in the history books. History is not just dates on a calendar. It's the people. And that's what I want Undiscovered Utah to focus on even more going forward. The places matter, the ruins matter, the roads, mines, ghost towns, and landscapes all matter. But they matter most because of the people that lived there, worked there, struggled there, dreamed there, and sometimes died there. So what does all of this mean for the future of Undiscovered Utah? First, we're going to expand the podcast. We will continue telling stories about forgotten places, strange history, ghost towns, lost roads, mining camps, legends, and mysteries from Utah and the surrounding region. But I also want to bring more guests into the show. There are people out there who know stories I don't know. There are families who have passed down memories for generations. There are historians, authors, explorers, archaeologists, ranchers, miners, and lifelong Utah residents who have stories worth hearing. I want Undiscovered Utah to become a place where those stories can be shared. Second, we're going to expand into more video content. Hearing about a place is good. Seeing it is even better. So we'll be adding more video to support the podcast episode. That means more trips to historic sites, more on-location exploration, more footage of the places we talk about, and more visual storytelling through the Undiscovered Utah YouTube channel. My hope is that the podcast and the videos will work together. You can listen to the story and see the place. Third, we're going to think bigger. The name of the show is Undiscovered Utah, and Utah will always be the foundation of what we do. But every state has forgotten places. Every state has stories buried under highways, reservoirs, subdivisions, sagebrush, forests, desert, mountains, and time. Someday, I would love to see this idea grow beyond Utah. Maybe Undiscovered Idaho, or Undiscovered Colorado, Undiscovered Texas, and maybe even Undiscovered Alaska. The possibilities are not endless, but there are about 49 more. Would you like to see an Undiscovered podcast about your state? Would you like to hear the forgotten stories from the places you grew up? That is part of the bigger vision. More podcasts, more videos, more books, more stories. All of it eventually falling under one broader idea of Undiscovered America. I want you to be a major part of this journey. We want to hear from our loyal listeners, just like we have in the past. What forgotten places should we explore? What family stories deserves to be told? What abandoned town has everyone forgotten? What old road, cemetery, mine, cabin, legend, or local mystery do you think deserves attention? Because I don't think Utah's greatest treasures are hidden because they're difficult to reach. I think they're hidden because we stopped telling their stories. That is really what this podcast has always been about. Not just finding old places, not just taking pictures of ruins, not just telling scary stories or strange legends. It's about remembering. It's about preserving. It's about looking at a place that most people ignore and ask, who lived here? What happened here? What story is being lost? And after spending the last 8 months writing Death, Silver, and Sin, I believe that more than ever. So yes, I have been gone for a while, but I have not been away from the work. In many ways, I have been deeper than ever before. And now I'm ready to bring that energy back to Undiscovered Utah. You can email me at jb@undiscoveredutah.com. You can also leave a comment and tell us what places and stories you would like us to cover next. You can find us on YouTube by searching for Undiscovered Utah. Our website is undiscoveredutah.podbean.com. And if you'd like to read the book that pulled me away for at least 8 months, you can find it on Amazon. The title is Death, Silver, and Sin, written under my real name, Neal Beckstrand. This is an exciting time to be part of Undiscovered Utah. If you have not subscribed yet, do it now. We have a lot of stories ahead of us, and I promise you, many of them are hiding in plain sight. I'm Neal Beckstrand, JB to many of you, and this has been Undiscovered Utah. Thank you for listening.